The Joe Rogan Experience.
You have this cartel now that is, you have El Mayo Zambada is gone. El Chapo's sons are cutting a deal. One of them apparently has made an alliance with the head of the new generation cartel, a man by El Mencho. His nickname is El Mencho. Nemesio Seguela Cervantes is his real name. Last time I was here, there was this almost 5 years ago. I was here. There were questions about if he was even alive or not. People thought he was like being kept alive as this folk figure because he's low key, very low key. Not like he's not flashy. Everything's militarized. He's very good at his tradecraft. But recently, he's very much alive. He's very much exposed himself a few times. He was almost arrested recently, and the federal police apparently tipped off his security about the operation against him. It's the second time he was almost arrested. He's the biggest target right now in Mexico. We recently learned through the media of the Trump's authorization of utilizing military action in Latin America in general. All the way from Venezuela, all the way up to Mexico, and you hear these rumblings of like, how is this military operation going to look like? Is this going to be an invasion? Are we going to see like a column of U.S. Marines driving down to Tijuana? We'll probably spend some time in Tijuana for. It's probably not a good idea. Are we going to see like people, Delta Force guys showing up in Tijuana and Culiacan and going on a raid on their own without permission of the local authorities? What's this going to look like? I don't see a direct trust between Mexico and the United States anymore. There's issues there. The U.S. has realized that politics are compromised at high level in Mexico.
Completely.
With the example of the recent almost arrest of Nemesio Seguela Cervantes El Mencho, you see that the federal forces are compromised as well. So, like, who do you trust as an American force that is trying to cut the stem of drugs into this country is kind of the excuse that they're utilizing for this designation, and who do you trust down there? I posted. I'm friends with a bunch of dorks, and they're all looking at flight tracker and intelligence and stuff like that. And I'm a dork too, and one of them sent me this suspicious American drone flying over the state of Mexico in circles. And I posted it immediately. I think I was one of the first ones to post it online. And a press briefing happened almost immediately. And the head of public safety in Mexico, Omar Garcia Harfuch, said like, oh, yeah, we asked for this drone to fly over this area. Who did you ask? This is not a military drone, but we asked for it to fly over this area. Which I don't think he knows what the fuck's going on. I don't know why. I don't think he knows why there's a drone flying out over a very specific part of Mexico. I don't know. It seemed like he didn't, or either he didn't want to reveal this drone, but there have been many times recently of drones just flying close to the border or over Mexico. They're clearly drawing an intelligence map of targets in Mexico. So something is coming, I think.
Whoa.
But what is it going to look like, though, is the question that people are asking. I don't know. Speaking to somebody like Gafe down in Mexico, he was a former member of the Special Operations. And I asked him, like, hey, what is the military going to do if the U.S. says, like, we're going in without your approval? He said, well, if you start fighting the cartels without approval of the Mexican government, you will turn criminal organizations into freedom fighters. And they're already integrated into the military in certain ways because some of them are working for them and some of them are working for us. So you will make the whole a cohesive force against you.
Oh, boy.
Which is an interesting theory, if that happens.
That seems likely.
It does. I mean,
because there's like anti-U.S. sentiment already.
It is,
and then also the closing of the borders, and
it's a perfect storm. I mean, Trump is divisive, and in Mexico he has been turned into this very clear like enemy. Like, this is the enemy, specifically by politicians down there. He's pretty easy to just vilify. Like, it's his fault, you know? Why is Sinaloa on fire? Maybe it's because you have a corrupt governor there who was clearly in cartel ties and stuff like that, who's part of your party, but you haven't figured out how to get him out of office. Maybe it's that. Or no, it's the U.S. because they abducted El Mayo. That's why that place is on fire.
That's
their
why they
fault.
charge someone with treason.
That's why they charge somebody with high treason, which is unheard of. But there you go. So, like, who are you going to trust in that realm? And so Mexico has pressed the U.S. is responsible for this, and they're kind of wiping their hands from it. And the U.S. keeps pointing their finger at high-level government, which is something, again, 5 years ago, I spoke about this on this podcast, and I got a lot of shit for it. I said, there's no way of going after cartels in Mexico without going after the government, because they're one and the same in a lot of places. And that was back then, and now it's even more clear as how tied they are.
If nothing happens, if the United States doesn't do anything, how much bigger can the cartels get? This is the question. It's like,
Yeah.
what is going to happen to just this entire country?
If you have, and this is that's why you have a lot of conflicts happening in routes that are leading towards the border. The Sinaloa cartel operated in a very old-fashioned way. You know, they wouldn't no cagas donde comas. It was their politics. Don't shit where you eat was their politics for a long time. You saw a change in this when the brutality aspect and how just shit changed in Mexico. There was an incident. Members of Los Arellano Felix cartel, the Tijuana cartel, were in a direct conflict with elements of El Chapo Guzman's organization. And they had a assassin. They had an assassin basically infiltrate the living circle of one of El Chapo's main guys, El Güero Palma. And he seduced his wife, killed her, and abducted his kids and threw them off a bridge and sent that video to El Güero Palma. And I think brutal shit had happened after that, before that, but I think that set off this. At some point, that whole war that happened, you start getting the element of the Zetas coming in, who were former special operator guys who basically said, like, we can start our own cartel, which a lot of them were Fort Bragg trained individuals that went down to, some of them went through the Green Beret course. Foreign nationals go through that course a lot. So they went to the Green Beret course, and then they go back to Mexico, and then as soon as they get back to Mexico, like, oh, congratulations on your cool Green Beret and all this training. Come train our guys. Or come work for us. So at some point, all of this started militarizing the conflict in Mexico. It went from gang against gang violence, which is like very reminiscent of some of the stuff that happened up here during the gang era, or some of the Al Capone era, shootouts between people. The Zetas changed the game. They started bringing in guerrilla warfare tactics into this realm. They started doing all of those torture videos and cartel execution videos. That comes from them. They realized that part of a guerrilla warfare campaign is propaganda, and how can you make propaganda of shooting a guy in a field?
Right, film it.
So they changed that game. They started realizing that it's one thing having a kid with like sneakers on the back of a truck with an AK whose dad was part of the organization and he brought his kid in. But it's probably a better idea to have militarized or paramilitary groups working with us, So they started getting these evolutions of ideas of what a criminal organization should be. And all of that, the members of the new generation cartel that are now kind of like dominating Mexico started off as a Zeta hunting force by the Sinaloa cartel formed in Jalisco. And they said, like, well, we can do this for ourselves now too as well. So that's how they originated in a lot of ways. So this organization has taken the textbook learning process of all these other cartels and is now this cartel with all this foundation, educational foundation, as far as how to set up an organization, how to set up all these transnational routes, how to operate on both sides of the border, how to augment their capabilities constantly through technology. Drone warfare was first seen, I think, in Mexico. You saw drones dropping bombs and shit like that in Mexico before the Ukrainian conflict. But they got really good at it. I mean, the Ukrainians have fucking taken that shit to an art form. There are Mexican nationals fighting for their foreign services, their foreign brigades in the Ukraine. And some of them have gone into that route, drone operators. And some of them are coming back. And you started seeing this sudden sophistication. It used to be bomblets dropped from these commercial drones, and the explosives in them were probably mining level explosives. You start seeing these bomblets made, and they were more reminiscent of Colombian explosives or IRA era explosives. And now you're seeing these coordinated drone attacks on military forces in Mexico. I think they recently got some high level army official. They got him with a drone. Didn't kill him, but they almost killed him. So we started seeing these drones now being operated as scouts. So you can't get close to them because these drones are in the sky. So now you're seeing drone cartels fighting against other cartel drones. So now we're seeing cartel guys with these futuristic anti-drone guns in the field.
I've seen those things, yeah.
They look like space guns, but on the hands of a cartel guy wearing like sandals, which is what the fuck's going on with these people? So you start seeing all this augmentation of capabilities. This single cartel now has all of this history behind it, all of these lessons behind it, all this training behind it, all this technology. And it is poised to punch a hole right through its territory and go up north into the United States, right? There are no segments of the border wall currently that are actually controlled or a city that is controlled by the new generation cartel that is on the border. That's not the case now. But there are places that are starting to maybe look like they're going that way. Tijuana being one of them, where I'm from. You start seeing the last remaining sons of El Chapo Guzman that are free. Archivaldo is the strongest one. And his faction of Los Chapitos, as what they call themselves, this past year announced that they had reached an alliance with this new cartel, this new generation cartel. So it's a cohesive force, and they had historical ties and a part of the border that they owned already that they inherited from their dad. So that nightmare scenario, having this cartel now having a clear doorway into the United States, it's pretty close if it's not there already.
And how wild would it be if the border was still wide open? Because they've cut down on illegal immigrants by some high 90%.
Yeah, it's way down. There's still crossings going on.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
It's really expensive. It's really expensive.
You got to get that guy off TikTok.
Yeah. There's a bunch of ways they do. I saw one where they were like, hey, they'll grab a portfolio full of copies of IDs and like, oh, you look like this dude. And then they'll give you, they'll say like, just get really drunk before you cross and they'll pretend you're asleep. And they'll give you paperwork that looks like the dude, that looks like you. And that's how they cross people. And it's a lot. It's very expensive. But that's how they cross you. Fast boats, there's a bunch of videos online, boats just arriving on the beach and just dudes jumping out. It's a classic
and
one.
Running.
And running. There's
and once they're in.
There's a shortage of those wave runners. There's a shortage of them in Mexico because they just buy them just to.
Well, a short trip. I mean, if you get on one in Tijuana and you hop over to San Diego. Yeah, it's not that far. No, and they'll swarm it now. They'll do many of those boats. And if you were in TJ, you could see off the coast. There's a bunch of Navy ships now off the coast there. So which is a cause for alarm for a lot of Mexicans. When I say Mexicans view any sort of intervention by the United States with fear. Although they are also fearful of what happens if this is allowed to continue in Mexico, and they don't see any solutions from the government. So it seems like the opposite. It seems like it's going more and more towards the cartel.
Yeah.